me share my screen with the agenda.
I'm going to call to order the January 26th, 2021 Citizens Traffic Committee meeting. I'm going to start with a roll call, and I'm going to announce your name, and if you could unmute yourself and say aye. I think I saw Richard Karlowski.
Aye.
We got Tom Allen.
Aye.
Did I see Mark Steiner?
Aye.
Did I miss Andrew Kolakowski?
Aye.
And did I miss anybody? I guess not. We also have Holly Donahue and Jennifer and Joe Murphy, I think, is here, and Steve Purnell, all city. Great, thank you. I'm going to read the preamble real quick. Traffic Committee consists of royal property owners that are appointed by the City Commission with volunteers, not paid or elected. What we decide tonight is a recommendation to the City Commission. If you do not agree with these findings, or if you do agree, it's a good idea to go to the City Commission meeting and discuss your issue at that time. At this meeting, we're going to give people that are in the audience a chance to speak when your item comes up on the agenda. I think we can explain on how to do that in a second. But during the City Commission meeting, you must be recognized during public comment or you won't be able to speak. But this meeting tonight, when your item comes up, we'll open up comment on that particular item. It's important to understand that professionals make preliminary recommendations to the traffic committee. They consist of civil and traffic engineers, outside consultants, and public safety officials. You may have been informed that these individuals have denied your request. That doesn't mean that we're going to vote that way, but we're committed to discussing these issues in a practical manner that benefits our city as a whole. Moving on to item 3, we have the minutes from our November 24th, 2020 meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Tom Allen.
Tom Allen moved. Is there a second?
Second, Rick Karlowski.
There's a motion and a second. Any changes or comments on this? Hearing now, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. And we do have Amanda Morris Smith is joining also for the roll call. Moving on, is there anyone in the waiting room that wants to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? This would be the time. And Jennifer, I don't know if you can explain how people can raise their hand.
Yep, if you're on your computer, there should be a little raise hand button. If you are on your phone, you would hit *9. We do have one attendee with their hand raised. It is Patrick McGee. So I'm going to allow him to talk. And Patrick, you should be able to go ahead. Just got to unmute yourself.
Thank you. If you can hear me okay?
Correct.
This is Patrick McGee of 4524 Elmhurst Avenue. One quick item from the last traffic committee, the crosswalk along Normandy, across Normandy at Durham. The crosswalk signs at the actual intersection have been removed. Would request that they be temporarily reinstalled until the more permanent solar flashing lights can be installed. I'm not quite sure why they can't coexist until the flashing traffic lights are installed. That's my comment. Thanks.
Great. I think someone that looks into that is taking that note down. Thank you for that comment.
Yep.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak on something that's not on the agenda this evening? And I'm assuming, Jennifer, you're not seeing any hands?
Nope, no hands, so we can continue on to the agenda items.
Right.
Or rescheduled items, sorry.
Yep, we got 5A, results of the November traffic committee recommendations to the city commission. Holly, do you want to talk these real quick?
I just wanted to give an update of the results from our last meeting that was held in November. We brought all the recommendations of the committee to the December 7th commission meeting. The commission approved all the items except for a couple, and I just wanted to make you aware of it. So item 6B from the November meeting had to do with that no outlet sign on Florence. There was a lot of back and forth between the commissioners, and ultimately they voted 4-2 in favor of removing the no outlet sign. The traffic committee had recommended that it remain in place. So that has taken place. The sign is now gone. And then also item 6C from that same meeting in November, which had to do with that traffic signal that Mr. McGee just mentioned at Durham and Normandy. The commission had some concerns about upcoming potential traffic changes on Normandy. With the park opening, they thought there might be more pedestrians and also more traffic. And so they directed staff to actually go ahead and install those flashing pedestrian crossing lights. We had one right by the Imagine Theater downtown on 11 Mile, if you're familiar with that. So something like that is scheduled to be installed. I think they've already got the concrete posts in the ground and are just waiting on the actual equipment to come from our supplier before those get installed. So hopefully that will be pretty soon. And then they also directed us to make sure we bill the driver who damaged the signal in the first place for the full cost to replace it in kind if we were to do that, and then to use that funding in the future if we opt to do anything more, I guess, at that intersection or anywhere along that stretch of Normandy for traffic improvements. Once the park is in place, then we kind of see if there's any changes to the way things are operating out there. And then also we just kind of going back to the 5 streets near Beaumont that we've been talking through every so often. One of our recommendations was to ask Beaumont to send a notification to their employees, asking them to stop using these streets as cut through, knowing that it may not help at all, but it's worth at least trying. So they did indeed do that, and they copied me on the communication, and it was well worded and very good. So we'll see if that helps, maybe a little bit at least. And then currently all those residents have the opportunity to take a survey regarding the different options that we came up with as a committee. And those should be finalized here in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And we'll bring that to the March meeting when the time comes. So those are all kind of the old item things I just wanted to bring to your attention.
Great. Thank you, Holly. I think that's good feedback. We see what things passed the city commission and what things were discussed. It was good to attend the city commission, and there was a lot of back and forth, more than I expected on the removing of the dead end street sign and the crosswalk. But, I think it went well, and these are good feedbacks for our committee to look at. So we're moving on to the regular agenda items. 6A, we have a request to review traffic calming options for Nakota Road between Delamere Boulevard and Woodland Avenue. Holly?
Yeah, so we received a request from Susan Sims of 4403 Woodland to review traffic calming options on Nakota. She stated that vehicles speed on Nakota between the stop signs that are at Woodland and Delamere, and sometimes they don't even stop for the sign that is at Woodland. She's concerned with the danger this poses with the new park and the children and elderly who are going to use it. So taking a look at the corridor, Nakota is a 31-foot wide local road consisting of composite pavement from Delamere to Briarwood, and then concrete pavement with integral curbing from Briarwood to Woodland. And that concrete section we just rebuilt in 2019. This section is about 0.3 miles on Nakota, and there is a stop sign at each end with no other stop signs in between, and parking is allowed on both sides of the road. Normandy Oaks Park, which is currently under development, borders the south side of Nakota along this stretch. The 3-year accident report shows that there was 1 crash at Thorncroft in Nakota, and this is where a vehicle had hit a parked trailer. The city did request traffic measurements from the TIA, which were measured in December, And there's a table in the packet that shows what the results of those were. We saw 497 vehicles per day and an 85th percentile speed of 28 miles per hour. So the 85th percentile speed is just over the recommended threshold for a 25 mile per hour street. Typically, we want to see that in the 25 to 27 mile per hour range. The traffic volume is at the low end for a local street, which is about 0 to 600 vehicles per day is considered low. Volumes may increase once Normandy Oaks Park is open due to the parking lot. The entrance is right off of Nakota, so you may see some more traffic on that road. With the new park development, a pedestrian crossing island would be beneficial for the residents to access the park and also to help with traffic calming. The city is actually already planning to resurface Nakota west of Briarwood this summer in 2021. And so we have designed a 50-foot long pedestrian island in the middle of the road there to be constructed as part of that project. And the pedestrian island would be just west of the driveway entrance to the parking area for the park. And that would, the handicap ramps would connect to the new sidewalk on the south side of Nakota and then also to the walkway that leads into the park. So our recommendation is basically just to stick with what our plan is, to install a pedestrian crossing island on Nakota just west of the driveway for Normandy Oaks Park as part of the 2021 road resurfacing project with an estimated cost of $5,000, which has already been budgeted.
Holly. At this time, I guess I'd like to open up, see if anybody raises their hand on item 6A. If there is anyone that wants to speak on this topic.
We have one person, Patrick McGee, raise his hand. So let's see, I'm going to unmute him and lower his hand. Okay, Patrick, you should be good to go.
Hi there again. You can hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. This is Pat McGee with 4524 Elmhurst Avenue. Real quick about item 6A here. I live right near that intersection that is being discussed. I'm not opposed to what city staff has proposed. I think that's a good solution. However, the solution is not actually anywhere close to where the intersection in question is being discussed. As a potential temporary solution to this is when they were reinstalling one of the sidewalks at that intersection and updating it to an ADA compliant sidewalk, the stop sign in question was damaged and bent. So it actually leans away from the street. It's pretty hard to see as you're coming down Nakota. And with Nakota being freshly repaved, it's been pretty popular as a smooth, flat road for driving down. So as a solution, I was thinking if there could just be a update to the stop signs at that intersection, that might be beneficial. And as Holly mentioned, once the sidewalks go in on the south side of Nakota, that should also help because the intersection at Nakota and Woodlawn there, the south side of it is blocked as you're approaching. The trees and the fence obstruct your view from the northbound traffic of Woodlawn there. So if there could be a update to the stop signs, that would be very beneficial. They're small, and the one on Nakota is bent, leaning into the park. So thanks.
Thank you, Patrick, for your comment. Is there anyone else in the audience that wants to speak on this issue?
Just gonna check real quick. It's a big attendees list today. Nope, I do not see any other hands raised.
Okay, I'm going to close public comment on this particular issue and bring it back to the traffic committee for discussion or a motion.
This is Rick Karlowski. I'd like to propose that we accept the staff recommendation with the caveat that we put in a work order to fix the stop sign mentioned by the public commenter.
We have a motion. Is there support?
Second, Tom Allen.
Supports. Any further discussion? Not hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Great, motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item 6B, request to install no truck sign and permanent radar speed sign on Benjamin Avenue between Woodward and Carmen Avenue. Holly?
We received a request from George Miller of 2312 Benjamin regarding the increased traffic and speeding on Benjamin. He states that especially over the last 6 months, traffic has significantly increased on Benjamin due to vehicles using it as a cut through. He states that driving apps are directing drivers onto Benjamin when Woodward traffic is heavy and that more trucks are using this residential street. The police radar speed trailer was placed on Benjamin temporarily, and he had said that it helped greatly with vehicle speeding, and he was hoping that a permanent radar speed sign could be put in place along with a no trucks sign. So reviewing this request, Benjamin Avenue is a 37-foot wide major road with concrete pavement and integral curbing. The 3-year accident report indicated that there were no accidents along the corridor. There was one previous accident back in 2016, which is just outside that 3-year cycle that we typically look at. And in that case, the driver had just hit a parked car. The city requested traffic measurements from the TIA for speed and traffic, and those were measured in November. And then also we studied this area back in 2019 as well. And so I wanted to show both results here just for comparison's sake. So we measured the first row in the table that's in the packet is from June of 2019. So this is when there was not a pandemic in place, but school was not in session. And the 85th percentile speed measured then was 32 miles per hour, which is quite high for what's supposed to be a 25 mile per hour street. And vehicles per day were 1,664. We did not measure the truck's volume as part of that study. And then the measurements from this year, which was November of 2020, of course, there was the pandemic going on and school was not in person session. I guess it was virtual. The 85th percentile speed was much lower at 26 miles per hour, which is a great result to see. And the vehicles were about half, only 835 had been seen. The traffic that we measured only showed that there was one heavy duty truck, one semi truck that came through the corridor. So like I said, comparing the two sets, it appears that the pandemic has significantly affected traffic on the street, with the volume being about 50% lower and the speed also being now in the acceptable range. We're still planning to install some traffic calming on Benjamin in 2023 when we're there for the road millage improvement that was previously approved by the committee and the city commission back in 2019. The truck volume is very low for the street, and so truck prohibitions are not necessarily recommended at this time. It's something that we could analyze again in the future. I would say at least a year from now, when traffic patterns return hopefully back to a more normal situation, and we can see if congestion on Woodward is potentially causing more truck traffic on Benjamin. Studies show that radar signs are generally effective at slowing speeds initially, but tend to be less effective over time. So for this reason, the permanent speed radar signs are generally not recommended as a solution for speeding. Typically, we only see those types of installations near schools, if at all. So based on the data, our recommendation at this time is to deny the request for the installation of no truck signage and for the radar speed sign. I did want to mention that we got 3 different emails on this issue from residents of Benjamin. So if you don't mind, I'll just kind of briefly summarize what we heard from the residents. So we heard from Dan and Amy Shaner of 2316 Benjamin. They had speeding concerns about the speeding and the volume. They stated that their car has been hit multiple times on Benjamin, that they've had pets killed. The peak hours, sometimes they have to wait a while before they can actually back out of the driveway. that there's construction traffic, and that Jane Addams school traffic uses this as a cut through. And we're just concerned about the safety of the street as a whole. And then we also heard from 2262 Benjamin from Chris and Karen Kahn. And they noted that there's a lot of cars and a lot of trucks due to the development and more residents. Really bad speeding issues, especially lately. And we're asking if speed humps could be considered here. And then finally, we heard from Mary Emerson, who did not provide an address, but she had mentioned that there are lots of vehicles, lots of speeding, and also mentioned the possibility of speed bumps being installed.
Is there anyone in the virtual audience that would like to speak on the Benjamin Avenue item?
Let me take a look here. Yep, we have a couple people with their hand raised. First, I am going to have George talk. Let me approve you here, George. Okay, George, you should be able to speak. You just need to unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. My name is George Miller. I'm a 50-year resident of Benjamin Avenue. My address is 2312. First, I just want to compliment the city and the fact that there's been a lot of things that have been done to improve traffic in different ways. We are an older city. I think you'll all agree with that. Our streets were built probably 60, 70 years ago when traffic wasn't what it is today. You've done a nice job with bike lanes. You've done a nice job with changing some of the traffic signals out and some of the islands that you put in as well. But a problem that remains is the speed on Benjamin Avenue, especially between 7 a.m. and 8:30 a.m. coming northbound, and between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. going in both directions. I think another thing that has been a detriment to our street is navigation systems. I literally stopped a semi-truck driver this past summer, to ask him why he kept coming through our street, because he was coming once a week. And he said that the Waze app told him this was a closer route to get to between 14 and Maple on Crooks. And so he would follow Benjamin all the way down to Normandy every time he had to take a route. If you've noticed on Benjamin, we've had some cement sink, and that has to be a direct result of the weight that's on this street, because since you're allowing trucks to turn right to come onto Benjamin Avenue, there must not be a weight limit. And so that concern is that, you know, at some point in time, we're going to pay the cost for the amount of weight that's actually on the pavement, the blacktop itself. But the biggest thing is the speed. We've got a lot of young families that have moved into this neighborhood. I've been fighting this issue. I've talked with Commissioner Pat Perush a number of years ago when my kids were still growing up about the speed, and now with the cars, the muscle cars and what have you, we have people that come roaring off of Woodward Avenue, don't even stop at the Carmen and Benjamin stop sign until they get to Webster. My granddaughters were out playing on the front porch one time, and the ball got off the front porch and went into the street. This lady was on her phone and totally oblivious, ran the ball over. The ball popped under her car. She didn't stop. She didn't stop at Carmen. She just kept going. That could have been a child. Like the Amy and Dan next door, we've had 2 cars hit. One was totaled. This was a number of years ago. And so I just think that as the city continues to modernize and as things are developed like navigation systems, we need to find a way to get these drivers to slow down. I understand these squeeze points that you're talking about in 23 may assist that, but I'm just curious why Rochester Hills, Ferndale, Detroit are all using speed humps successfully to slow these drivers down, and Royal Oak is not embracing that. I would ask for someone to maybe talk about that, and for maybe at least someone to look at those jurisdictions to see why they're successful there and why we're not willing to try and take a look at that.
Thank you, George. Okay, we have another commenter, Kenneth Willis. Kenneth, I have allowed you to talk. You just have to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, this is Kenneth Willis at 2313 Benjamin. Miss-
Did we lose Kenneth or am I?
Kenneth, we can't hear you. I think we lost you.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yep, we can hear you now. Sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. And I just wanted to agree with Mr. Miller. Speed is definitely an issue on Benjamin. Cars, a lot of times, I'm not sure some of them can even see the stop sign at Carmen as they head north. It's usually the northbound traffic that is the worst. And I agree that I would like to see some sort of slowing mechanism. Speed bumps would be fine with me. At a minimum, I'd like some additional signage if we could do that. But I just wanted to weigh in on that and offer my support for the recommendation.
All right, thank you, Kenneth. Okay. All right, we have one more person with their hand raised. This is Amy Shaner. Amy, I'm going to allow you to talk. You just need to unmute yourself.
Hi, so my husband and I sent a note regarding our experience. We've lived here since 2003. When we moved into our home, we did not realize that traffic was as bad as it is on our street and the speeding. And part of my note said that we asked for traffic to be looked at on our street, and this was probably about 3 years after we moved into our home. And we were told that we should be happy we don't live on the other side of Royal Oak by the service drive because traffic was even worse over there. And traffic has only gotten worse since we've been here. So I just want to make sure that that's noted. And I also have a recommendation for speed bumps.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Oh, Amy raised her hand again. I'm going to allow her to talk again. Did you have another comment, Amy? I saw you re-raised your hand. You're still muted, though. Nope, not hearing anything. I will lower her hand.
Okay,
All right, sorry about that.
no problem.
Back to you, Dan.
You're probably trying to lower her hand and thought you had to press it again.
Yeah.
Good comments from the emails and the people in our virtual audience. Thank you for that. Bringing it back to the traffic committee's side of the discussion. I was probably around when Amy heard that I might have said something like, be happy you don't live on the south end because we were having some problems with speeding at that time. I'll let some of the other traffic committee members speak. I personally see in here on this committee of probably our number one issue with during rush hour, in particular, as Mr. Miller outlined, that people are traveling way too fast. But we have to look at the data in front of us for the warrants of this, and one benefit of the pandemic is that traffic counts are down. Your 85th percentile is also slowed down too. But you'll see people that ignore speed limits at certain times of the day. And what we've also seen too is that people that drive at excessive speed are not going to be swayed by more signage. The things that we've done that are effective include the traffic calming measures that are going to be planned for 23, and some of the other things that Holly's predecessor did with, like on, I believe it's Lincoln Avenue with raised concrete and such. That's where I'll stop. I'll listen to anybody else for more discussion or motion on this item.
This is Rick Karlowski. Holly, do you want to address the speed bump question that kind of came up, so we can, as to why we don't have, or speed bumps aren't recommended or necessarily aren't as effective as advertised?
Right. So we did reach out recently to Ferndale because we have seen them and they're our neighbor, and we were just kind of curious how that was going. They started installing them back in 2016, I think it was, and learned a few lessons along the way. Last time I talked to them, they had about 20 or so speed humps installed in their city. They said that they learned the hard way that you need to circulate a petition to get the majority of the street in favor. A lot of times they found that they would install speed humps and then residents would be absolutely furious because it was in front of their house and they lost parking, or there was a lot of noise because cars were still speeding. They were just, flying over the speed humps instead. They looked at, they have temporary removable speed humps. Their DPS was very much against it because they already don't have enough time to do all the different things they need to do to maintain the city. And I think our DPS would look at it the same way. Let's see what else. They did note that fire departments don't allow them on fire routes. And so generally on any major roads, and I'll again remind you that Benjamin is considered a major road. The speed bumps, well, actually they're called speed humps. Speed bumps are something you can put in a parking lot. You're not authorized to put them on roadways per MDOT. So a speed hump is more gradual. It's about 3 inches higher than the surrounding pavement. And the idea is that it's not so tall because you want a car to be able to comfortably pass it at 25 miles per hour. So you're not expected to slow down to 15 miles per hour to get over the hump. It's supposed to be comfortable for a vehicle to drive over. Ferndale police have complained that they don't see them really being much of a deterrent, that people are still speeding over them because they're not, I guess, high enough of a bump to slow down cars. Cost isn't a huge issue. It's about $2,500 to $6,000 per location to install them, which isn't, excessive in any way. So they try and do them whenever they're doing a road paving project. They'll try and potentially put them in at the same time. So lots of complaints that they've gotten had to deal with loss of parking in front of a home. There's signage that goes along with these. So people complain that they have all these ugly signs in front of their house. Noise issues, as I mentioned, can be a problem, and that a lot of drivers will end up speeding after they get past the hump anyways, similar to stop signs and why stop signs don't help with speeding. So they've had mixed results, I guess is what I'll say. Some people like them and some people think they haven't really done anything to help.
Great, thank you, Holly, for that explanation.
One question I do have is, what traffic calming measures are scheduled to be implemented as part of the 2023 project? If you know, and if not, it's okay.
I don't have anything on paper designed. When my predecessor, Matt Callahan, was here, we had kind of thrown around some ideas, like just kind of sketching on top of a map, but some sort of pedestrian island where I think the road like kind of curves off of Woodward, and we wanted something kind of right there to slow down traffic because it was a really good location. I think there weren't any driveways. It wasn't going to conflict with a left-hand turn. So we thought that that would be a really good spot. And it was a huge amount of pavement. And we kind of thought, could we just get rid of some of this pavement as well to kind of make people feel like it's narrower and you might have to drive a little slower. So the answer is I don't know for sure what it's going to look like, but probably in the vein of the pedestrian calming islands that we've done in the past.
Great, thanks. Any other comments or a motion?
Well, I would like to move we accept staff's recommendation with, again, the caveat to add a no trucks sign. I don't think that would be that expensive and may help, at least until we can get the traffic calming measures in with the resurfacing to lessen the traffic, or at least the bit larger truck traffic down the street.
Okay, we have a motion to accept staff with the change to install no truck signage. Is there support? Not hearing support on that motion, dies for lack of support. Is there another motion that would come forward?
This is Amanda. I would just move to adopt the staff recommendation as it is.
We have a motion to move staff recommendation as is. Is there support?
Mark, I'll support.
We have support by.
And also reiterate that, this can be brought at a later time, following COVID, of course, but that doesn't need to be said really, but yes, I'll support.
Great, thank you, Mark. Any further comments? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously to accept staff recommendation. Moving on to 6C, request to install no parking signs on Woodlawn Avenue east of Rochester Road intersection. Ali?
Yes, we received a request from John Vella of 512 Woodlawn to add no parking signs east of Rochester Road. He states that all the adjacent streets off of Rochester already have no parking signage, and he's witnessed multiple accidents at the intersection of Woodlawn and Rochester since moving there in November of 2017. He also states that it's difficult for residents of the condo development there, which is called the Towns at 3506, to exit their driveway when vehicles are parked on both sides of Woodlawn. He's received support for the request from his condo board and then also from the Woodside Bible Church, which is their neighbor across the street from the condos. So Woodlawn Avenue is a 27-foot wide local road with concrete pavement and integral curbing. The 3-year accident report showed a couple of accidents. One occurred where a westbound vehicle turning left from Woodlawn failed to yield to a southbound vehicle on Rochester. And then another similar accident where, again, a westbound vehicle failed to yield to a northbound vehicle on Rochester, potentially indicating some sight distance issues when trying to turn off of Woodlawn. There is a hydrant and a stop sign on the north side of Woodlawn. This is just east of Rochester, and that prevents parking on the north side, at least for about the first 40 feet to the east of Rochester. And so that's demonstrated if you have your packet. There's a little Google Earth image there, and the little yellow area kind of shows where already you're not able to park just because of the law. The next street south, Midland Avenue, has a similar situation, the same type of condo development. And on that block, the westernmost portion is already signed for no parking. Staff visited the street several times at various hours of the day and the night and observed that there's often 1 or 2 cars parked on the south side of Woodlawn overnight and sometimes during the day. The petitioner noted that parking increases when church is in service, although throughout this whole study, I think everything was mostly remote for them. But the petitioner also did provide a spreadsheet of the parking observations, and that's included in the attachments, but showed pretty similar results, usually 2, sometimes 3 cars parked on the south side, occasionally 1 on the north side. So when turning from Rochester onto Woodlawn, a parked vehicle that's close to Rochester on the south side could be difficult to maneuver around, could be potentially hit by somebody turning onto the road. And when turning out of the condo parking lot on the south side of Woodlawn, it can be somewhat difficult to see oncoming traffic from the west, especially if they're kind of flying off of Rochester Road. The petitioner noted that there are 5 parking spaces for visitors in the parking lot, and it's a 17-unit condo parking lot, and noted that typically all 5 spots are used overnight. So it is possible that if we go ahead with the no parking restriction in front of the condo area, that could push a few vehicles further to the east, parking in front of people's homes. So something that should be considered. Changes to the parking on a street, typically we do require a petition of the entire block. However, as this request wasn't really to change the whole way the block operates, it's just for one small segment. We went ahead and evaluated the concerns, but we did send a letter to everybody on the street in case there were any objections or concerns with it. So our staff recommendation is to install a no parking this side of sign on the south side of Woodlawn, just west of the condominium driveway that's at 512 Woodlawn. We did get 4 different letters, emails from various people. I guess I don't want to go into too much detail here, but we heard basically they were all in support of the motion. We heard from John Richard Smith of 508 Woodlawn, from Paul McCastry of 524 Woodlawn, from Candace Sardelli, who lives in the condo development, and then also from Miranda Globerson, who's the president of the Homeowners Association for the condos. So I think that basically summarizes it, and hopefully I didn't miss anything with the comments there. I did want to note all these were sent to traffic committee members ahead of time for them to review the emails, and then they'll also be included in the final minutes for this meeting as well.
Great, thank you, Holly. Just one quick question for me. The proposed location of the sign is going to be like at the right side of that red box in the illustration?
Let me think here. Right, yeah, we'd put it, I mean, I could put it on the other side of the driveway, I suppose, just to make sure no one parks there, but the idea is that you could park to the east of the condo driveway, kind of where that tree is shown. It's just that first red area where nobody would be parking.
That seems appropriate. I just wanted to make sure that I'm looking on the right spot, that's where you're proposing to have no parking. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any attendees that want to speak, Jennifer?
Let me see here. Take a look through the list. Yes, we have John Vella in the audience. John, I'm going to allow you to talk. You just need to unmute yourself.
This is John Vella at 512 Woodlawn. I'm also the vice president of the Condo Association. All that I really want to say is that this real issue of safety was brought up by the residents to us at the condo board. And as we looked at it, it does make a lot of sense to do exactly as you're recommending. And I just want to say thank you for your support.
All right, thank you, John. Okay, I'm just checking, see if there's anyone else in the chat here. I don't see any other hands raised.
All right, thanks, Jennifer. Bringing it back to the committee for discussion or motion.
Okay, this is Amanda. I'll just jump in. I'll move to adopt the staff recommendation.
Great, thanks, Amanda. Looking for support.
Rick Kurlowski, I'll support.
We have a motion and support. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item, where are we? Sorry, I lost my spot. Item 6D, request to install speed bumps or stop ahead signs and to install sidewalk across Vincetta Boulevard at Lawndale Drive. Allie?
Yes, we received a request from Angela Cortez, I hope I'm saying that right, of 1105 Vincetta Boulevard to install speed bumps, stop ahead signs, or other alerts to keep drivers from ignoring the existing stop sign for northbound traffic on Vincetta at Lawndale. She notes that drivers often ignore the sign, and she's already contacted the police several times. She also requests that a sidewalk be installed north-south across, I think that's right. I guess it's more of an east-west. It's kind of a skewed street, but basically across the boulevard of Vincetta to allow pedestrians to cross the road at this intersection. So looking at this, Vincetta is a major road, consists of composite pavement with concrete curb and gutter. There are two 22-foot wide lanes, which are separated by a boulevard. Lawndale is a 27-foot wide local road consisting of concrete pavement with integral curbing. And Lawndale is the first intersection on Vincetta east of Woodward, or north of Woodward, however you want to look at it. There is a stop sign for northbound Vincetta and for eastbound Lawndale. Southbound Vincetta does not have a stop sign at the location. So the next stop sign for northbound traffic on Vincetta is approximately 925 feet to the north, which is at Greenleaf Drive, and that's a four-way stop intersection. Currently, there's a stop bar painted on northbound Vincetta at Lawndale, along with the stop sign. The 3-year accident report shows that there was 1 crash at the intersection, and this is when a northbound vehicle rear-ended a vehicle that was stopped at the stop sign. Looking at the traffic count data that we got from the TIA, it was measured in December. We have a table that shows the vehicles per day here. So all legs of the intersection are generally at the low end for traffic counts. Lawndale is 174 vehicles per day, which is very low for a residential street. And then Vincetta is around 1,100 if you're looking at both directions. Again, very low for a major road, kind of middle of the road for if you want to look at it as a local street. So based on the Michigan Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, the intersection does not currently meet the recommended criteria for a multi-way stop. The different criteria are listed here, which would be 5 or more crashes in a 12-month period, vehicle volume from the major street being around at least 300 vehicles per hour for any 8 hours, vehicle, pedestrian, and bike volume from the minor approach averaging about 200 vehicles per hour for that same 8 hours, and then very high pedestrian volumes, and that's like in the hundreds of pedestrians per hour. So the stop sign on Vincetta could potentially be removed. Removal of stop signs, of course, requires that drivers familiar with the area adapt to the change in not having a stop sign there. So for example, drivers on Lawndale might expect traffic on Vincetta to come to a stop, and they might proceed, and there could potentially be an accident. Traffic counts on Lawndale are quite low, however, and based on the requester's concerns, it appears that drivers might already be used to checking that Vincetta traffic is going to stop before they actually proceed. Currently, there are no sidewalks for pedestrians to cross over on Boulevard, really at any of the turnarounds along Vincetta, except when you get close to Northwood Elementary, because it's a school. And that's north of 12 Mile Road, so not really in this area. The city sidewalk program is used to repair sidewalks, but also to construct new sidewalks to help foster a walkable city. That's a major goal of the commission. And each year, the City Commission evaluates potential areas of new sidewalk for whatever target area we're working in for the year. So sidewalk improvements in this section of the city are scheduled for 2023. And so we think that all the crossovers on Vincetta could be evaluated all at once to kind of have a comprehensive plan for sidewalk crossings along Vincetta rather than trying to do this piecemeal. So staff recommendation is to remove the stop sign and the stop bar for northbound Vincetta at Lawndale, and to present new sidewalk options for crossing Vincetta Boulevard to the City Commission in 2023 as part of the city sidewalk program. And we did get 2 emailed comments. The first was from John and Terry Schaefer, and they were very much against the removal of the stop sign, primarily due to speeding, and also very concerned about pedestrian safety. And then we also heard from Susan Frentz of 1617 Vincetta, which is kind of at the other end of the block, just south of 12 Mile. And she's also very much against removal of the stop sign. She also wanted to have striped crosswalks and signage, stop signs at the crossovers, additional 25 mile per hour signs, sign the street for no trucks. And based on kind of all those different requests, it kind of was a larger scope than what we looked at here. So I did request a traffic study, which we can bring to either the March or the May meeting to go into more of those issues, but I did want to at least address that, that she was against the stop sign for this potential issue. I think that's it.
All right, thanks, Holly. Jennifer, do we have anyone in the audience?
Let me take a look here. Yeah, we do have a few people that raised their hands. First, I'm gonna allow Angela Cortez, the petitioner, to talk. Angela, I've unmuted you. You just need to unmute yourself.
Perfect. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you good.
Great. Thank you guys so much. You did actually get my last name right, which is pretty rare. So thank you. Thank you also for even considering putting in crosswalks here. Just to give you guys a little bit of background, my husband and I moved into 1105 Vincetta back in May and recently welcomed our first daughter shortly thereafter. And we noticed quickly after moving in how bad the speeding was on Vincetta Boulevard. We are right at that intersection of Lawndale and Vincetta, and have noticed, as I mentioned, on quite a few occasions, people blowing through that stop sign. So the original intent of this request was really to address not just people blowing through that stop sign, but really just keeping our neighborhood safe by keeping the speeding down. When we did first move in, a police officer actually came to our house to ask for our doorbell camera footage, because there was a girl who was on her bike right outside of our house who was hit, and the car just kept going. I don't know whatever came out of that, but it left us a little concerned knowing that happened literally right outside of our house, and we have this new daughter. So I am looking out for the safety of not just our family, but all the young kiddos in our neighborhood. So if, having a stop sign, I would say, like, I would like to have the stop sign remain as is. But the larger issue that we're trying to solve for is that speeding as people are using Vincetta to cut between Woodward and 12 Mile. So if there are other traffic calming techniques that we can implement, I am all for it, whether that's speed bumps or humps, the pedestrian crosswalks, whatever it is. But people are just not adhering to the 25 miles an hour and going, north of 40 miles an hour on our neighborhood street.
Thank you, Angela. Okay, let's see. Our next raised hand is Chris Meister. Chris, I'm going to allow you to talk. You just need to unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. Again, this is Chris Meister, and I'm at 1066 Vincetta. And we've lived here since 2008. And, Vincetta is a beautiful street. It's wide, and, basically it lends itself to speeding. And my wife and I have really appreciated the stop sign, and we do see a lot of people blowing through it without stopping. I know that there's a concern about the number of cars going through the intersection. We'll point out that the survey was taken during the the time of COVID, and traffic in general is down, but still people do tend to speed. It's very common for cars. I've talked with people who say, they just commonly use Vincetta to cut across between Woodward and 12. And so I would hate to see this, to lose the stop sign. At the very least, I'd say, please leave the stop sign there. And then, other measures to slower the speeding, would be welcome.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay.
Let's see. We have another petitioner. Let's see. Her name is Jennifer. Jennifer, I've allowed you to talk. You just need to unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Jennifer Southwood. I live at 1312 Vincetta, which is the southeast corner at Greenleaf. And I have a stop sign in my front yard. We moved in about 14 months ago. I have two children who are 7 and 9, and I have been astonished at the amount of traffic that blows through our stop sign, which, as someone noted, is the next stop sign kind of in the line as people are heading northbound. I've been astonished at the amount of people that blow through that stop sign at 30, 40 miles an hour. I probably see 8 people a day. And that's just when I happen to have visibility out of the window, which I'm not sitting at the window all day because I have kids and a family to take care of. But that's just the people that I see blowing through this stop sign. And I did read the data that was presented here today, and I know there are not a lot of accidents. Currently, there's not a lot of traffic, but the traffic that is here is not obeying the law. And the amount of accidents I don't think are quite indicative of what's happening on this street, because we have the narrow bridges that is the cross traffic. And the people who come through on the cross streets, are adhering to the stop signs, at least from what I have seen. I would say, I know the pedestrian traffic is not hundreds a day, but the pedestrian traffic on this street is significant. And I even see people that come and park on the side of my home and get out of their cars, sometimes with pets or what have you, and they walk the boulevard because it's a beautiful place to be. I think there's been a significant amount of turnover from a real estate perspective in this neighborhood in the last 12 to 18 months. And a lot of families with young children have moved in. And it's a growing concern for all of us that we have so many people cutting through and doing so at significant speeds. And we also have seen an increase in semi-truck traffic. I can't believe, I've seen semi-trucks coming down our street going, even if it's only 25 or 30 miles an hour, but they're ripping limbs off of the branches of the trees that line the boulevard. And, that's unfortunate. I also was witness to an accident, around breakfast time about 6 months ago or so, where somebody was driving, it was on the other side, southbound, driving a Chrysler 300, blew through the stop sign, wrecked up onto the curb and slammed into a tree in the front lawn of the neighbor across the street, who also has a small child. So the traffic here is quite out of control. I think in one suggestion or recommendation I would like to make is that we convert these stop signs that we do have, and certainly I want to support keeping the stop sign at Lawndale as well. I think if anything, we need more stop signs. But I think we need some flashing stop signs, or maybe some double stop signs, one on the left and right side of the boulevard. I do think sometimes these people aren't even seeing the stop signs, whether that's because they're on their phones or they don't care, or they're in a hurry. But a lot of cut through traffic and a lot of speeding and just disregard for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. All right, we have a few more people to talk. Next is Christine Buchanan. Christine, I'm going to allow you to talk. You just need to unmute your mic.
There, it's actually Christopher, but that's okay. I'm using her account. No worries. I'm at 1204 Vincetta, right on the corner of Vincetta and Mayfield, across the street from the mailbox. So I guess I'm just going to echo what everyone's already said, the speed and the people not paying attention, looking at their phones. In addition, you have people that stop in the middle of Vincetta in front of my house to get out to put their mail in instead of getting to the right side of the road. So I think if you eliminate that stop sign, you have the potential of a high speed crash, because people are just going to zoom from Woodward to that first stop at Greenleaf. That's really it. I've been in my house since 2011, and multiple times have I seen vehicles blow the first stop sign and then come to a screeching halt at the Greenleaf stop sign. So yes, I would plead with the committee not to eliminate that stop sign. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, next up we have Brad Cross. Brad, hang on. Brad says you're using an older version of Zoom. I have to promote him to a panelist to allow him to talk. Okay, let's do that for a moment so he can speak. Let's see. Where did he go here? Okay, Brad, you should be able to talk now. I've unmuted you. Maybe. Brad, if you're talking, we cannot hear you. Okay, I'm not hearing Brad. I'm going to move him back to the attendees for now, and I'll have someone else come in. Let's see. Next person with their hand raised is Terry Schaefer. Terry, I've allowed you to talk. You just need to unmute yourself.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you, Terry.
Okay, great. This is Terry Schaefer. I'm at 1130 Vincetta. I'm one of the emails that was sent. We've lived in our house since 2003, so we've raised 2 children here. When I got Angela's note that the commission was considering removing the stop sign, I knew that I had to just come and speak. I really plead with the commission to please not remove that stop sign. I'm just reiterating what everybody says. People come through off of Woodward, they're speeding at 45, 50 miles an hour. They take that turn off of Woodward. They come to the stop sign and they don't even see it. Having raised 2 children, I have a 21-year-old and a 17-year-old. So I have seen these cars for 17 years come speeding down here. Angela is correct. She has a bird's eye view at her house to see this. And Brad, who didn't get to speak, lives next door to her. He has a bird's eye view of this. So I just plead that you please do not take that sign down. And police presence is a great deterrent to the speeders. I've seen it a couple times, and you'll make a lot of money for the city if you send the police out here, because you'll write an awful lot of tickets. But I beg that you don't take that stop sign out, and that you could do even more for us, because it's kind of out of control. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Terry. Okay, next up, this is the last person with their hand raised. We have Ben Rowe. Ben, I've allowed you to talk. You just need to unmute yourself.
Okay, good evening. Can you hear me, Jennifer?
Yes, we can hear you, Ben.
Okay. Thank you. I live at 1115 Vincetta, across the street from the Lawndale intersection that's in question here and next to Angela. And just echoing what everybody else has been saying, we'd like the stop sign to remain. I think the initial request through the emails that were included as exhibits to this, to the minutes, was to make the stop sign more visible by, Jennifer mentioned the, dual mounted signs, one on the median, or, even other methods to make the stop sign more visible. There are things like retroreflective signage on the posts and things like that could be done. I don't think the intent was ever to do the traffic study and have the sign removed. I think with the speed, it could create, as everybody else has said, speeding issues. Several years ago, when the permit parking was added from Woodward up until about the Lawndale intersection, it creates just very few cars that are parked on the street, and it's a 22-foot wide lane, and people just use it to cut through. And removing a sign could create additional incentive for people to use it as a cut-through street. We also moved in about just under a year ago and have a 3-year-old child as well, so we're concerned about the same things that have been mentioned by others. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Okay, I'm just going to check to see if anyone else has raised their hand. Let's see here. Nope, I don't see any other hand raised, so back to you, Dan.
Great, thanks, Jennifer. Bringing it back to the traffic committee side to discuss. I've traveled this section of our city a number of times to get to the Greenleaf Vincetta area. In on a boulevard street like this, I probably was one of the people that blew through the stop sign at one point in time, just because I didn't expect it. Because I could see that there was no traffic coming at me at Lawndale, but the visibility was good to know that nobody was coming, and I probably just didn't see or pay attention to the stop sign. So it's To me, its location is problematic. I can understand why it's being suggested to remove. I don't know. Just we heard from a lot of residents that don't want to see it go away. I'm kind of conflicted about what best to do, and like to hear from the rest of the committee.
This is Amanda. I'm supportive of a recommendation that would be to present basically the second half of the staff recommendation to present new sidewalk options for crossing Vincetta to the City Commission in 2023. But I'm not supportive of removing the stop sign. It just seems like we're poking a bee's nest for no reason. And so I just think the sign probably needs to stay where it is.
Dan, do you mind if I chime in for just a minute? So yes.
Who wants to chime in?
That's me, Holly.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I guess I wanted to clarify, the original requests and emails I got talked about people blowing through the stop sign or not paying attention to it, and didn't really ever talk about speeding as being the primary concern here. And what I've been hearing over and over again is that's what's really upsetting people on Vincetta. And so, as I mentioned kind of at the beginning, one of the comments had asked for a bunch of other things to be looked at on Vincetta. So we will be doing a speed study because it's snowy and stuff. I don't know when I'll actually get counts on the road and get measurements. I'd like to bring it to our March meeting, but it may not come until May. So we can at least look at that, as its own issue, speeding. I guess I just wanted to make that clear. And then also to make it clear to everyone that's listening on the call that the Michigan manual makes it a very clear directive that you don't install stop signs to control speeding. A lot of people think that that's why they're there, but it doesn't work. People just speed up afterwards. And it's not even a suggestion or best practice. It is a requirement of the Michigan manual that you don't install these just to help with speeding issues. You install stop signs for other warrants, safety issues, volume issues, sight distance issues, things like that. So I just want to make those couple of points to all the people that were on the call.
Great, thank you, Holly.
Dan, we do have a couple attendees that raised their hands again, if you wanted to let them speak additionally.
In a moment, I just wanted to hear if there was anybody else at the committee that wanted to speak at this time. Not hearing anybody yet. Let's let it rip. Jennifer, give people a second shot here if they.
Okay, let's see. First, I'm going to allow Jennifer to talk. Jennifer, you just need to unmute yourself again.
Thank you. I guess I just had a follow-up question to Holly. I understand, I'm not familiar with the Michigan manual, but I understand what it is that you're saying. And I guess my question is, then what are the avenues under which we can control the speeding on the street? Which includes going straight through the stop sign. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. And then Angela Cortez, again, I'm going to allow you to talk. You just need to unmute yourself.
That was my question as well. Just curious what we can do. And I agree with Amanda, just poking the bee's nest a little bit. I guess I'm also curious why we'd even consider taking down the stop sign when it's already in place, and it's doesn't need to be messed with, I guess, if it's not like against a code at all.
Thanks, Angela. Okay, and back to you, Dan.
Okay, thanks. Bringing it back, anybody wish to comment? I guess I understand both sides of this. From an engineering standpoint, I see where stop sign is really not warranted here, and that it's not a good thing, and that we should talk about this in March or May when Holly could present some different options for calming and what could happen with that. But leaving the stop sign in place until that meeting occurs maybe is a good idea. I'll wait for you guys to make a motion or tell me something different.
This is Rick Karlowski. I agree. We should just wait until we get more data on that. Leave the stop sign where it is until we have a more complete plan as to what we want to do here. So I think I would support Amanda's motion with that comment.
Was that actually a motion, Amanda, that you made, or just a comment?
You know, it wasn't, it was just a comment. But I'm thinking based on what Holly said, that it sounds like she wants to look into the speeding issue and bring it back to the committee with some data, maybe at the next meeting, or she said the meeting after that. So I don't know. And I'm just opening this up to everyone. If we should like adjourn it or table it to a future meeting. I guess I'm not sure what the best move here would be.
I kind of like that suggestion, Amanda, as far as adjourning or tabling this issue until the March or May meeting. So options could be presented, and basically it's going to just do what it says it's going to do anyway, because we're not going to take the sign down at this time, and have a month or two to get more data and present options.
Dan, Angela Cortez raised her hand again if you want to allow her to speak.
No, I'm going to kind of close public comment. I think we've gotten the gist of what people want to say, so I'm going to want to keep it moving. So Holly, are you okay with holding this over and just having no action on it?
I think that's a great idea. I'd rather look at this as a comprehensive issue than trying, like I said, piecemealing solutions. I'm not sure when this section of Vincetta is scheduled for road work, but that might be a nice thing to look up as well to see if we can tie in some calming bump outs or chicane type situations or something to help with speeding. That was one of the questions that I forget who had asked it and the second go around here, but yeah, usually that's what we look at if we see speeding issues on a street, is some sort of traffic calming, either islands or bump outs, to help traffic need to slow down and move around because they feel a little uncomfortable just speeding through. I'll also note that a lot of people think they're speeding on their street, and a lot of times it's not. So 25 miles per hour looks really fast when you're stationary. I'm not saying that's the case here, but a lot of people are often surprised when we get speed data back that it's not nearly as high as they thought it was. Yes, I'm in favor of your plan to table this.
Okay, let's do that in a motion if someone would like to do that.
I guess I'll do it since it was kind of my idea maybe, but I'll move to table this item, which is what, 6D?
Yes.
Yes, 6D, to a future meeting to allow engineering to complete their data collection.
We have a motion. Is there support?
Support Rick Karlowski.
We have a motion to support. Any further discussion? Here now, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries to table it to a future meeting. Great, thanks everybody. Moving on to item 6E, request to remove paved parking areas within the Delaware Boulevard right of way. Holly?
Yes, this is the issue that engineering has some interest in, and also the planning division. So Joseph Murphy, our director of planning, is also on the call tonight to help facilitate the discussion and answer any questions. But the purpose of this item, staff is seeking public input and the traffic committee's recommendation regarding the roadway design of Delamere Boulevard from 14 Mile Road down to Normandy Road. The half-mile segment was originally scheduled to be resurfaced this summer as part of the city's road millage plan. During design recently, we noticed how many paved parking areas there were within the public right-of-way, and approached the planning division to see if maybe a more comprehensive improvement should be considered that might include removal of these paved areas. The planning division confirmed that removal of the spaces would be ideal for various reasons, which I'll get into. Because this street is within the low to moderate income neighborhood under the city's Community Development Block Grant Program, or CDBG, it may be eligible for a more comprehensive redesign using CDBG funds rather than the city's road millage funds. So Delamere Boulevard is a 31-foot wide local road. It's an 80-foot wide right-of-way overall, and it consists of composite pavement with concrete curbing. The road is signed for 25 miles per hour and is intended to move local traffic from nearby streets to the higher capacity roads of 14 Mile and Normandy. The area to the east is primarily a residential neighborhood, while the area to the west and along the corridor itself contains a variety of light industrial uses. Over the years, many private property owners have paved the public right-of-way between their building, their property, and the travel lane without prior approval from the city. The paved right-of-way created loading and unloading zones or parking spaces for the private use of the business at the expense of safety, functionality, and aesthetics, and also increased the city's potential liability, the city's maintenance, and stormwater runoff volumes. Much of the paved public right-of-way is in deteriorating condition. It's kind of a pretty ugly looking corridor that could really use a facelift. The city did not create the paved right-of-way and really don't plan to use any of our road funds to make any improvements to the paved parking areas. Adjacent private property owners are not guaranteed access to or the use of unimproved paved public right-of-way areas. This became evident when the City Commission opted to remove paved portions and install public sidewalks back in 2016. Historically, this segment had not maintained the consistent network of sidewalks, and several years ago, like I said, in 2016, the City Commission committed to implementing a comprehensive non-motorized transportation network citywide, including Delamere. So this corridor received the sidewalks and also a bike route designation. However, vehicles parked in the public right-of-way still block or reduce the visibility and increase the likelihood of vehicle to pedestrian, vehicle to cyclist, and vehicle to vehicle accidents. With the new housing development near Normandy and also with Normandy Oaks Park, traffic volumes are expected to slightly increase on Delamere, and speeding may also become an issue in the future. When Delamere Boulevard is improved, traffic calming devices such as pedestrian islands or bump outs are something that we would like to consider. So the city has the opportunity here to restore the entire corridor to be a safer and more attractive space. The proposed CDBG project would include milling and resurfacing of the asphalt roadway, removing all the unapproved parking paved areas in the right-of-way, installing full-height curbs where they're needed, to install traffic calming islands or bump outs, to create new concrete driveway approaches to the private properties, either to their parking lots or several of these have overhead garage doors, so we would provide those. Also to plant grass, with that or seed, and also to plant trees where appropriate, typically at 30-foot spacing. And finally, to install bike route signage and to put sharrows on the roadway. So we put together a very, very preliminary plan, I'll say, just to kind of really just show where all these paved parking areas are. And so those are shown here in red. So it's kind of like a 3-panel plan view. So the south end starts in the top left corner and progresses down to the bottom right corner. That's 14 Mile Road in the bottom right. So all those red areas are spots that we might consider for removal of paved parking areas. I did want to note I have an error on here in front of 4326, which is in the middle panel towards the left. There is an overhead garage door for that building that I missed and didn't put a driveway approach in there. So that would be corrected absolutely if this does move forward. So I just wanted to make that note because we got a complaint about that. And that was my mistake. Fire department, I didn't put this in the write-up, but I'll add it to the minutes. When we met with staff, fire department did note that they use this route a fair amount for their runs and that reducing the amount of vehicles backing out of these parking spaces might make life a little bit easier for them. We did notify all the property owners adjacent to Delamere. We didn't talk to the neighborhood or anything yet, so just the adjacent property owners of this meeting, and it looks like we have quite a few people here to speak on the issue. We do feel it's very important to hear their comments before we make any recommendations to the City Commission on this issue. So Our suggested staff recommendation at this point is to research allocating CDBG funding to improve Delamere Boulevard by resurfacing the roadway, removing all pavement in the adjacent public right-of-way, except for driveway approaches and sidewalk, to include bike route signage and sharrows, to restore the public right-of-way with seed or sod and trees, and to install traffic calming measures along the routes. The estimated project cost is about $700,000 using the CDBG fund. And I'll note that that's kind of at the limit of what we might reasonably be able to get from CDBG. Anything more comprehensive would probably require some additional funding source. We got several emails, which I will, I guess, touch on here, and then we can probably open it up to public comment, but I'll let you do that, Dan. We heard from 3 different people representing 4326 Delamere. We heard from John Witt Holdings, from Patty Soon, and from Kevin Hintz. They all are very much against removing the parking areas, saying that they built this building back in the 60s and paved it at that time, and it's been there ever since, and that this would be a real hardship for them as a business. And then we also heard from the Razor Law Firm, from Jim Razor, on behalf of Art Harrison Interiors. His letter said 5339 Delamere, but I believe he means 4339 Delamere. And it was a lengthy letter, and I think he's here tonight, so maybe I'll just let him speak on his concerns and his thoughts on the issue, but generally against removal of the parking spaces. I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, Holly. On this diagram that we're looking at here, the proposed, the very preliminary proposal that you've outlined, you did mention that the area is shaded in red except for that one for that has an overhead door. Those are, if this proposal was to get to fruition, would be paved areas removed, and those would be green space?
Correct.
Okay. What's the, your recommended motion is to just research this. Does this mean like over the period of a certain amount of time, you would still gather information and possible CBD funding? Can you clarify what you mean by just research and your recommended motion?
Sure. I think we didn't want to go and request CDBG funding without the blessing. Sorry? Can you hear me?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
That's my problem.
Yeah, so our intention was that we did not want to go after CDBG funding without basically the commission blessing this, because I'm sure this is a controversial issue and something that they're going to want to speak on. So that's really when I say research, it's really just get the blessing so that we can formally ask for the funding from CDBG. I don't know if Joseph Murphy maybe can chime in on the schedule. I think we would shoot for like a 2022 project here, if possible, but that's more his wheelhouse than mine.
If you'd like, I can provide a little bit of comment. My name is Joseph Murphy. I'm the Director of Planning here in the Community Development Office. And one of my primary tasks is to oversee the daily operations of the Community Development Block Grant Program, or CDBG program. As Holly noted, we're researching the opportunity to utilize CDBG funds to do, I'll say, more than just resurface the roadway. As Holly noted, that was a project that would be covered by the road millage, and there may be an opportunity to have a further modification of not only the roadway, but the adjacent right-of-way with Community Development Block Grant funds. So the opportunity tonight is to solicit the public comment. As Holly noted, we provided notice to all those along the corridor. We certainly want their input on the current condition and what they see for the future. And we would like that the traffic committee would make a suggestion to the city commission to proceed forward with the project or not, and in what capacity. So back to the idea of limited scope of resurfacing the roadway, or an increased scope with CDBG funds of not only resurfacing the roadway, but addressing the right of way, and in what capacity. That's what we're trying to achieve today, and ultimately a decision or a recommendation to the City Commission. The City Commission considers all potential CDBG funded projects. That generally occurs in April or May of each year. So we would be looking to present all of the potential CDBG projects first to the Rehabilitation Board of Appeals that makes a recommendation to the City Commission for their ultimate decision. And the larger scale projects, ones that take a longer time in order to design, bid, and establish for a construction schedule. Holly is correct that if this project were to proceed forward with CDBG funds, we would be looking at next program year, and the likelihood of actual construction starting would be sometime in 2022.
Thank you, Joe. That helped me out. Probably a good idea that since we're going to hear from some folks on this, to open up public comment. Jennifer.
Okay. Let me go over to the attendees here. First up, we have Jim Razor. Jim, I allowed you to talk. You just got to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Good evening. Members of the board and members of the staff, thank you so much for working so hard and so late to make Royal Oak a better place. It's appreciated. And Art Harrison, who I represent, and the other owners that I actually met with yesterday are very interested in a solution that brings dramatic change to this roadway. The roadway itself is in terrible shape. It hasn't been maintained in a long time. It definitely needs an upgrade. But the problem is that with eliminating literally hundreds of parking spots, this neighborhood is going to be strangled, and it's a really cool neighborhood. Here's what's going on with it. There's a lot of uses that have been there forever, and I talked to business owners last night who have been there since the 50s. They told me that those spots have been there in the right-of-way since the 50s. They don't indicate there's any problems with traffic, with accidents. I don't see any statistics on the write-up saying there's problems with traffic or accidents or fire trucks or anything. However, these businesses need these spots to survive. These industrial uses here have back doors off their parking lots, which are, loading docks and things like that. They need this for customers to come in the front, not for people to be tempted to go up a set of stairs for industrial use in the back. There's many of these properties actually which will not be able to make parking according to our computations if this goes through, because they rely on this parking. And there's also a great deal of new uses. There's 2 new gyms. These gyms fill up all of that surface parking, that on-street parking, every single time they're having classes. So generally late at night, which is kind of a cool complementary use to the daytime use. And the fact is that eliminating the parking without doing a study of how this actually functions is a recipe for disaster. I understand and I applaud that staff wants to use community block grant funding mechanisms in order to be able to fund this. I do understand that that's something that is important to do, and it's a good thing. But my thought would be is that this neighborhood needs to have input on how this gets reconfigured. And in looking at the width of this roadway, which I think Ms. Donahue, you said was 80 feet, and I think I was wrong, I measured it wrong. 80 feet's a lot of room. And my thought would be is that you can do the things you want to do here and bring this neighborhood a much better roadway that's going to help it continue to thrive. And a couple of the examples I put in my letter, and I actually don't think there's the width there for the parallel parking with the dedicated bicyclists. But I do think that there's room for angle parking with sharrows. And that gives you a roadway that has plenty of on-street parking and that has room for bicycles. It probably gives you a wider roadway than you have now. And it might give you some pedestrian islands. In reading the write-up, I was pretty shocked that all of the specters of bad things that could potentially happen, including accidents or bikes hitting cars or all of these things, were things that weren't researched or studied. I was pretty shocked that we're looking at eliminating 150 spots that are always in use in a neighborhood without any plan as to where those cars are going to go. And I know, and you know, where those cars are going to go. They're going to go into the residential neighborhood east of this. And that's not something that we want to deal with, because then all those people are going to be real unhappy. We know that the light industrial businesses in this sector are going to die if we take this parking. We know the retail businesses, for example, Art Harrison, they have deliveries from gigantic trucks that have to drop off at their loading dock. These people need to have access to that in the driveway that they have now, which is quite wide. They need to have a wide roadway. They need to have the ability of these trucks not to wind around cars in the lot. My suggestion is that the neighborhood would be happy to sit down with the engineer and the planner and come up with an alternative so that we could all come up with a plan that we all like, and we could do something really cool for this neat, new, eclectic neighborhood, instead of just doing a one-size-fits-all that I know is going to cause a ton of problems. And, I don't know how many people there are for public comment right now, because I can't see them because we're in the middle of a pandemic. But my suggestion would be table this, give us 120 days. We're cooperative, we're happy to work with the city. We'll sit down with the planner and the engineer, not really, we'll virtually sit down on Zoom, and we'll see what it would cost. One of the things that I think that we could do with this is a corridor improvement plan, the TIFA, if the extra money is needed to fund extra improvements. But I think there's a real opportunity here to hit a home run with a really cool neighborhood with on-street parking, lots of trees, lots of cool bump outs that will cover up a lot of the ugliness that you see now, because the parking is very disorganized. It's kind of evolved over 70 years. And the other thing is this right away right now it's public property, but it's kind of privately used. Once this is turned into on-street parking, it will really be public parking for the whole thing. So when the gyms are full at night, they can park in those spots. During the day, customers can park in those spots. But I'm very concerned that without doing additional study and without soliciting the neighborhood's opinions, what you're going to have is a very unhappy neighborhood. And you're going to have a situation where you're really kind of strangling that neighborhood without really, getting their input and seeing how that parking actually works. Have you received a letter from Olson Manufacturing Company, Ms. Donahue? I don't know if you got that in time for this.
No, Ms. Donahue has not received that.
Got it. I have a letter from them. So what I would ask to do, Chair, and I don't want to take up all the time, but maybe you could call on me again and I'll read the letter from them into public comment. But I'd ask the chair to see if there's a temperature for taking us up on our offer and working with this neighborhood so that all the folks that are here, they can sit down and we can talk about it and see if we can reach a consensus, because there's probably an hour's worth of people that are going to talk on this. And why do that if, we can sit down and come up with a plan that we all like, that we can figure out how to pay for? Other things that we want to do, we want to do streetlights. We want to do banners. We want to do more green space. These are all things that, we should cooperate on the design of. So thank you very much for your time. If you wouldn't mind calling me again to read the Olson letter, or Chair, if you, Mr. Godak, if you just want to see if there's a temperature for, giving us a pause on this until we have some meetings, that would be great too. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim. We have two other people that have their hands raised. Next is Patrick McGee. Patrick, I've allowed you to talk. You just need to unmute yourself.
Hello, this is Pat McGee. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you, Pat.
Yeah, hi, this is Pat McGee of 4524 Elmhurst Avenue. It's kind of interesting that you guys have this on the agenda, as it connects directly to the first street that was on the agenda, as that I live near that. I'm going to disagree with Jim Razor and his comments. He didn't reach out to me, didn't get my opinion, and I live in the neighborhood. So I don't think that's a fair comment to say everybody in the neighborhood. I generally walk this street basically every day now through the pandemic with my 15-month-old now. And I can't tell you how many times I've had to dodge trucks or dodge cars parked on the sidewalk, coming into the parking spots without looking. It's just generally a very unsafe situation going on. So I commend Holly for proposing this and getting this onto the agenda. I think turning the right-of-way to green space will be a very huge asset to this area. So thank you.
Thanks, Patrick. Okay. Next up, we have Ted of Birmingham Imports. Ted, I've allowed you to talk. You just need to unmute yourself.
Yes, I own the building that we have built, Birmingham Imports. That business has been there for over 30 years. And looking at the satellites, when we built this building, and I don't know when it was built because I bought it after that, but they've had parking in front from the very beginning. Satellite shows that, like the 1974 satellite shows there was parking in front back then. Also, it's a 12,000 square foot building, all the parking spots up front, so we're going to lose half of our parking spots. We'll now go to a non-conforming use into this industrial space. So the building will become, well, it's non-conforming. Customers, they are supposed to come in the front door. They have nowhere to get to. So overall, it would make the property less valuable and more difficult to use.
Ted, can you stay on a second?
Yeah.
What's the address of your building, Ted?
Yeah,
4310 Delamere.
Can you point that out to me? Is that I thought he was at the 14-mile end.
No, I'm on the other end. It's at the very top on the right. And I kind of go to the bottom on the left.
Okay. Great, thank you. Anybody else, Jennifer?
Yep, I have a couple more people here. Next is Paul. I might mess up your last name, Paul, but I'm going to do my best. Shakorian. I've allowed you to talk. You just need to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Whoa, sorry, Paul. We could hear you, but I had to mute you because there was a really bad echo. I'm going to unmute you again. Hopefully that won't happen again.
Hello?
Okay, that's much better. Sorry.
So thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to talk. I own the building at 4507 Delamere, and I in the process of looking for a new tenant, but I liked the ideas earlier about really looking at this whole redesign, because I think it's obvious if the parking is taken away from these businesses, there's going to be a whole new slew of issues and problems. But if we can figure out a new redesign of the street that might incorporate, I wouldn't say parallel, but maybe angle parking and more green area and lighting, I think it could be a very good solution for everybody. One of the people before spoke about the safety issues, and I agree. It is very unorganized the way people are pulling in and out right now. But if you had, directional angled parking, then it would solve that issue. And I just think with the opportunity in front of us, this street can get improved incredibly with a nice design. But I believe it has to include a parking solution for the businesses.
Great, thank you, Paul. And then we have one more commenter. It's Jim Razor again. I'll allow you to talk, Jim. You just need to unmute yourself.
Thank you so much. This is a letter from Olson.
Hey, Jim,
Hydro-
you could be brief with that, just kind of summarize that letter.
Okay, so James and Diane Weiss own and operate a manufacturing business at 5353. They own a building on Dakota. They want to thank you for your time. They've been in business since the 60s. They employ a bunch of people in aerospace, energy, automotive, agriculture, and they make things in the USA, which is cool. They've been there for 6 decades, and they want to ask the traffic committee to take the time and enter into a collaborative relationship with the businesses that have worked for decades to employ Royal Oak citizens and support the city. Their goals is adequate parking for current and reasonable growth, the ability to segregate manufacturing and customer office parking in the businesses, and to aid in the deliveries that they get from semi trucks by having more, less chaos and more, organization. And they thank you for your time.
Great,
Thank you, Jim.
Sure.
And we do have one more person, Gerald Julian. I've allowed you to talk. You just need to unmute your mic.
Can you hear me now?
Yep,
Hello?
we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yes, I'm at 4411 Delmere. And we're just wondering if we're going to receive, if you pass this, are we going to receive violations and fines and be taken to court?
We're not a body to kind of.
Sorry, I'm having.
Sort of decision. So just let us know what you think of this plan and if you think it's a good idea or not, and we'll try to answer your question.
Oh, it's going to be very difficult for our business and for my neighboring business. It's going to be devastating.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Gerald.
Thanks, Gerald. Okay, I think that's everybody. Let me just double check here. Oh, Gerald raised, oh, nope, I do have a couple more people here. Bob Kelly, Fire Defense Equipment. I've allowed you to talk. You just need to unmute your mic.
Good evening. I'll try and be brief. My name's Bob Kelly. I'm the owner of Fire Defense Equipment at 4350 Delamere, which is located right on the corner of Nakota and Delamere Boulevard. We also very much need this parking in front of our building. It has been there since 1960, although we moved in 1988, so about 31 years. Just to take a little exception earlier to what Holly had commented on, although we have paid the cost of repaving that area several times over the years, the last pavement installed was actually paid for by the city. Well, I'm assuming the city, when they did some repair work at the intersection of Nakota and Delamere. So we try and keep our cars out front isolated from truck traffic that's coming into our parking area to our rear loading door, mainly for safety of not only employees, but customers that come in. And it also allows us to minimize the amount of cars that actually park on the side of the building on Nakota, which sometimes can obstruct traffic for those residents trying to proceed further to the east to the residential neighborhoods. I just want to say that my understanding has always been that our neighborhood there, while I'd love to see it beautified, And I think you can all attest, if you've driven by our building, you can see we've spent a lot of money trying to make our property look nice. It's always been my understanding that this is an industrial area. I was kind of against encouraging walking down the street. Not that I was against sidewalks, but I never wanted to see a lot of pedestrians walking down the neighborhood, simply because I always felt, and I know there were a lot of our other industrial neighbors that felt, it's not a good mix with pedestrians, bicycles, trucks, service vehicles pulling in and out. And now the amount of traffic, I believe, and I don't have a study on this, but I believe the amount of traffic has increased with the new residents that were just put on the Normandy Oaks course. So I'd really like to see a comprehensive study on this, like Mr. Razor talked about. I'd like to see it done and done correctly. I believe there's a lot of solutions. I think a pathway could be put right behind our building, right through the new park area. There's a nice big green space where everybody could walk and not have to mix with trucks and vehicles. I just think there's a lot of ways things could be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, Gerald, I'm allowing you to talk. You just need to unmute yourself again. This is Gerald from earlier.
You have something?
No, I think I'm all set.
Oh,
Thank
okay,
you very
sorry.
much.
I saw you raised your hand. No problem. Okay, that is everybody that raised their hand. So back to you, Dan.
Great. Thanks, Jennifer. And we got a number of businesses with their input here. I had a couple of questions. This is the purpose, Holly, is to solicit people on this street. Was all these businesses given mailings that this meeting was going to occur?
Yes.
Okay. And without going into too much of a hypothetical, when I look at this image right now that Jennifer is sharing, if like the larger red sections became something that the could be captured as maintaining parking in those kind of larger red sections where you would do bump outs around them and make them public parking of some sort. Is there room to do that, or is that what's your opinion on that, Holly?
Yeah, so my concern with kind of this amazing idea of kind of redoing the whole corridor is the logistics and the budget. The estimate that we have here of about $700,000, that includes kind of keeping the curbs where they are, just doing some spot curb replacements wherever, like putting full height curb where right now there's dropped curbs. To do something like adding a bunch of angled parking, widening the road. It seems to me that you might raise that cost significantly and kind of take it out of the wheelhouse of a CDBG project, or potentially, something that has to be partially special assessed to the neighborhood, which I can't say if they'd be in favor of or not, but I don't really want to force an extra cost on these businesses. So I guess my thought is it's already a really, really expensive project, just kind of doing the basics here. To do something more thorough would be, it would take a lot more funding to make that happen.
If there was more funding, do you see engineering design issues with trying to do that?
I think the issue is just, from my point of view, it's the safety thing. If we want bikes out here, I don't really want angled parking backing out into the bike path. I don't really want fire to have to continue dealing with cars backing out onto the road. To me, it's like we've got a huge paved corridor. We can make it green. We can reduce the stormwater runoff significantly here. And those are the reasons I'm in favor of making this all green space. Of course, I understand the business's point of view, but that's kind of where my point of view comes from.
Okay, thank you, Ally. I'd like to hear from the rest of the committee, what they think.
This is Andrew. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Regarding the funding from the grant program, I think I heard in the write-up there that it's partially based, the eligibility is based on the income level of the neighborhood. Is that right? Is it possible that that's going to change with the new housing development that has been put in there? Do we have like a window to worry about this project in because of that?
That's an excellent point. We receive our community development block grant funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, as you might know the acronym. And HUD takes census data that's produced every 3 to 5 years and across the entire country crunches the data to determine relative to for instance, the data that we get to show the lower to moderate income neighborhoods is relative to the city's average. And we get those data sets, those neighborhoods, about every 3 to 5 years. We're in the second year of our HUD's current release of those sets of data. So we do anticipate, though, that potentially the neighborhoods could rotate, or this particular neighborhood could stay the same, depends on the census data and when HUD releases those data sets to us in the near future. I anticipate that would probably be in another year or two. That's always a factor in determining the timeliness of potential CDBG projects, is to if you do want to fund a project, to keep it in mind before that data set changes. I don't know that the data set will change with the onset of the new development. Only time will tell that.
Thank you.
Was there someone else that was trying to speak at the same time you were, Andrew?
Yeah, this is Mark. I mean, just my general thought on it is, this area, just looking through Google Images and, this mock-up right here, it appears to be predominantly a commercial industrial area. And it would be difficult for me to approve, this plan when it seems like, at least from the people that we heard from today, present legitimate concerns regarding the proposal. But, that's just kind of my thought.
Mark?
And I also think it's a fair point that bicycles and pedestrians, I don't know what types of trucks travel this road for the commercial industrial areas, but it may not be something we want to encourage in the first place.
Yes.
I have a comment, and I guess I have a question as well. My general comment is that, I'm not unsympathetic to, what I've heard today from the business owners. But on the other hand, I think we have to take that with, what we're being told by engineering is that this paved area that's used for parking isn't a public right-of-way that was basically unpermitted. So if you have something taken away that really lawfully probably should have been there in the first place, I guess my sympathies are not where they could be, especially looking at these different images of the area that we're talking about, in which there seems to be quite a lot of parking on side lots, even though I do hear the concern about loading trucks, you know, in the back of these businesses. But I guess my question is, if we're, you know, in favor, if somebody is in favor of, or as we in a committee are in favor of allowing engineering to look into getting this funding to improve Delamere, are we, you know, saying to the city commission that we approve the plan as it is proposed now, or is there any flexibility in, you know, I guess as Mr. Razor brought up, exploring any other compromises with the business owners and the people in this area, even if that is something that's going to be more costly? I mean, if the businesses want to pay an assessment to get this parking that they're asking for, I don't know that that shouldn't be off the table. So I hope that makes sense. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here.
Yeah, that did make sense, and I think that might be one of the things that could be considered. I don't know, Holly, if you want to comment on the motion itself is kind of general on what we do. You know, it's it's going to go to this city commission at some point and say, okay, yeah, this looks good for block grant funds, which may or may not happen. But I think the value of the traffic committee at this point is to, from an aspect of, is it a good idea, traffic safety engineering wise? That's kind of our, what we should offer input on. And this is the forum to hear from public. So the good point that I thought you mentioned too, Amanda, was the as an option, let's say there's 15 businesses here and 2 would be okay with going green and they don't care, and 13 would say we'd like to look at an assessment to pay for an alternative to the green space to have so many spots in such a configuration. That might be something that gets considered with the research that's going to be done on this. I think that's a good point. Anybody else?
This is Andrew again. I guess I'm reading into the proposal that I know grant writing is kind of an art form and difficult and time consuming. So is the purpose of this whole proposal, or the way it's being pitched to the commission here, or the committee here, is to, if this is a non-starter, to not express the resources in designing a plan and starting the process of applying for the grant funds? Is that a correct understanding of kind of where we're at?
I'll attempt to provide an answer to that. The Community Development Block Grant Program is a little different in that it's an entitlement grant. So as long as the city chooses eligible projects and has very strict documentation under HUD's guidelines to demonstrate that the projects that we want to accomplish with the federal funds, that they're eligible under HUD's litany of requirements, we receive the funds and we can implement the projects. So it's not a competitive grant in any way, shape, or form. It's an entitlement amount that, so long as we're demonstrating eligibility, we receive the funds and we can implement projects. It's not competitive in nature, other than the City Commission does consider a wide variety of projects, and they ultimately choose ones within their budget each year.
Okay. This is Andrew again. My last question then is a public and private partnership on something like this allowable? I mean, would the project either be all CDBG funded, or could it be a combination of business owners and that grant funding? If like a special assessment was to be made, or something along those lines, hypothetically.
To the best of my knowledge, in the 40 plus years that we've had a CDBG program, we've not had a combination or pooling of funds in that capacity. Don't know the direct answer to that without some further research. It certainly adds more, in this particular case, it would add more timing, complexity. The discussion from some of the property owners and their legal representation was to the possibility or thought of creating under state law an improvement corridor authority, which is an extremely time-consuming process in and of itself. To accomplish that, we would certainly sail past next program year, and I firmly believe well into the following program year in order to even create and then have enough money collected from the district to be able to start to expend the money.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
Any more comments?
I just wanted to say that Jim Razor did raise his hand again if you wanted to allow him to speak.
Not quite at this time, maybe in a minute.
I had a question for Holly, if no one else had a question.
Well, go ahead.
Okay. I'm sorry. Thanks. So let's say hypothetically, if the traffic committee votes that we do not want to adopt the staff recommendation, Holly, what would that mean for your department going forward? What would happen next?
I would probably change order a basic resurfacing program for Delamere into the 2021 project as originally planned. So that would be really no improvement to the parking areas, very minor spot repairs, and basically just new asphalt on the road.
I see. Okay. I just wanted to understand the ramifications. Thanks.
That's when these recommendations go in front of the city commission, they can certainly reverse what we vote on tonight. You know, this is definitely just a preliminary step. So if we say, no, you don't need to do research, just leave it as it is, that could certainly get flipped at the commission level.
So this is Rick Karlowski. I'm trying to understand. So what is the drop dead date for the businesses to come back with a counter proposal? And I mean, obviously, we have I would look at it as the budget is what it is as far as the grant. So city's not spending any more money. If they want improvements, then they're going to have a self-assessment of some kind to do that. Is there a drop dead date for that? We have to, that would, in other words, if they wanted to make a change to the plan, do we still have time to be able to make the change and not lose the grant money associated with it for this year or whatever fiscal year it is?
Well, I think the purpose of bringing it, we kind of went as quickly as we could to bring it to the January meeting rather than waiting till March. Because as Joseph mentioned, kind of April is when we start talking about what gets approved for the CDBG budget.
Okay.
And I'll let Joseph comment if maybe that means, do we wait another year and try and apply 2022 for a 2023 project? Do we I forget who mentioned it. Do we potentially risk losing the CDBG designation for this area? And maybe Joseph can chime in on that.
There's always the risk of this area, we'll say, falling out of being an eligible neighborhood. There's a possibility that it may stay an eligible neighborhood. We won't know that until the future. If there's a delay and the traffic committee wants to solicit a proposal from the property owners along the corridor, they can come back to you via and staff in that vein. They can come back at a future meeting date of the traffic committee, and you can discuss whether you want to, whether the design is palatable and whether there may be an opportunity in the future, not next fiscal year, but following fiscal years, of allocating some CDBG funds to a potential project. But without, there's little time right now to, unfortunately, to react to a proposal from the property owners, which involves their financial involvement in the project. That I don't see any opportunity whatsoever to accomplish a design and two funding sources in time to implement something for next fiscal year. That window of opportunity is entirely too small at this point in time.
Well, again, what is the absolute drop dead? If they come back with a plan by next meeting, we still can't do this, is what I'm saying. I mean, it's.
I wouldn't entertain even having a serious conversation with the property owners unless the district was actually created. So this is the first we've ever heard of the possibility of creating a district. That would need to be created before we would have a serious conversation about pooling funding sources together.
Well, I'm not talking about creating a district. I mean, we have the CBD funds. We have a plan that accommodates what the CBD funds are to improve the area. The property owners are saying this is going to hurt them, and they wanted to have a counter proposal. If the counter proposal is more expensive, then they're going to have to fund the difference. If they have a proposal and are willing to sign up for a self-assessment, and they can do that by the next March meeting, is that doable? By keeping the CBD funds allocated to this fiscal year as currently planned.
I don't think that's realistic. Just in my experience doing assessment districts for regular road paving for gravel streets, for example, that's a 4-month process to get through the standard resolutions with the commission. And I don't know that this would be exactly the same procedure, but it's definitely not a one meeting thing and then move on.
Well, I don't like I mean, we don't know what's going to happen after the census. We don't know what's going to happen as far as if this is going to be a CBD grant in the future. So I am not inclined to delay that to the next fiscal year and have nothing. So I guess the ball is somewhat in the court. I mean, I'm willing to ask, to get a plan from the property owners because I certainly understand where they're coming from. But if we have to vote on it today, as far as bringing it forward to the city commission, with the caveat, I mean, obviously the property owners can address the city commission directly based on the conversations we've had. Maybe by the time it comes up to the city commission for agenda, they can have something to present and propose.
Thank you, Mr. Karlowski. Any other comments from the committee? I do have a quick comment myself. I see the benefit of moving this forward in the fact just to see if the commission is behind it and if it could actually get the funds. But I don't think it's a good plan for the business owners. This area is heavily parked, and these businesses have been relying on this parking, and so I guess I would like to see a hybrid plan, but that's not being offered as an option because of timing here. And from when I was on the planning commission, I never wanted to support a plan just because you had to, based on timing. That wasn't a good criteria for moving forward on something. It has to make sense. And I don't like the way this place is parked. you know, cars generally don't fit in these, in some of the spaces are haphazard and cars hang over the sidewalks. It's not done well. I think something should be done, but I kind of feel it's like this or nothing, and I don't think this is very good. Those are just my comments. And I think this is going to get some heavy, you know, no matter what we say yea or nay on the motion or the staff recommendation, it's going to get some heavy discussion at the commission level. And I would recommend to the business owners that they kind of just, in their comments, don't make, no, this is bad. Be specific on, you know, how many spots you got and how you're using them, and you know, what you propose to improve how they're being used, and maybe include that in kind of a summary where, you know, you don't have 13 people speaking into a different kind of direction. Would be my recommendation to the business owners on this. We've been talking about this a little bit. If Mr. Razor had his hand up, I'll give him 2 minutes.
Okay, yeah, let me go over here. Okay, Jim, you should be good to talk now.
Chairman and members, thank you so much for the robust conversation. I just wanted to point out that, you know, we're not in the business of designing roadways. We want to collaborate with the city to come up with what's best for the neighborhood. And I want you to think about, if you inherited your grandmother's house, which didn't have enough parking, but there was parking out front, you got a couple weeks notice that the city wanted to take it, you'd need time to react to it and to come up with something. And when you went to City Hall and you said, hey, I want to sit down and work with you to come up with a great plan that works for, you know, us and all of our neighbors that have had this parking for 70 years, you know, and you say, you know, can we table this for, you know, a couple of meetings and work with you guys and come up with something? I mean, if these were all residential houses that had the same situation, I think the answer would be, you know, well, of course. I mean, this is what government's supposed to do, in my mind. And what I always tried to do as a commissioner and a planning commissioner and a zoning board member is to work with people that had longevity in the city to come up with plans that didn't necessarily, you know, like mess up, you know, 70 years longevity. And some of these people are third generation working in these businesses. All we're asking for is the ability to have you table this so that we can sit down with the excellent planning and engineering staff and try to come up with something that works. In terms of funding, I mean, I don't know what we're going to come up with, but there is a corridor improvement plan that's made for improving corridors that's authorized by state law. Once it's formed, you can bond against it. We had a lot of choices when I was on the commission about, you know, are we going to lose funding? Are we not going to lose funding? Well, I mean, community block grant's been going on for 50 years. I don't think we're going to lose any funding. I never saw a time when we lost funding. I mean, if we're going to improve this corridor once in 70 years, should we actually, you know, collaborate with everybody? We talk about complete streets all the time. We talk about, you know, how we want things to be walkable and bikeable and, you know, have friendly parking and be safe. But then when it comes down to it, we're going to do this decision with 2 weeks notice to people that have been there for 70 years. I'd urge you to table it so that we can, you know, collaborate and come up with a great solution. In my mind, what I always found as a commissioner is the more that we discuss things and the more that we came up with something, we'd come up with great ideas at the table. And that's all we're asking for. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. All right, back to you, Dan.
Hey, thanks, Jennifer. I guess that's any other comments from committee members. The suggestion to table has some issues too, because we usually meet every other month, and you know, if there was a way to use some funds on this and to improve this area over a decent time frame, I'd like to give them being the business owners opportunity to you know, offer up some ideas that could be considered, but not to constrict them to our next meeting, which might be March for all I know. that's the problem I have with tabling it, I guess, but, I'm not comfortable with just saying, yeah, this is great, go research it either, from just the fact that I think it's, not a good, way to go.
Well, this is Rick Karlowski again. So from what I hear from Holly, if we do not go forward with this, we're just going to go to basically a repaving program until we get a redesign approved. Is that correct?
You know, that's my plan, but that would be assuming that I got a direct no, don't you dare do this. Then I would go ahead and pave it in 2021. If it's we like this as a potential idea, but we want you to investigate this a little bit further. I think we're looking at hoping that we can apply for in 2022, April of 2022, we can put this in front of the commission as a more robust plan for them to approve and build it in 2023. Our road millage ends in 2024. So if for some reason this still never went through and we lost CDBG funding, yeah, I would pay extra to mobilize a contractor back up to this end of the city to do this road, but it's a pretty long stretch. So I might not pay that dearly to do that. So, you know, that's another option. And I feel like that's the gist that I'm getting is we don't want to rush this now. We'd rather take the time and do this maybe next year.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, but I mean, this is the catch-22. We don't know for sure if we're going to get this grant. So, but I do have a little problem with everyone saying that we just can't get it done in time. We can't do this. I mean, goodness sakes, I don't work for government, but I know in the private industry, we can push through things a lot quicker if there's, if we get some consensus and grease the skids a little bit. So I'm not sure what kind of motion to make here. I don't want to just reject it and then, go down, do a repaving and then come back here in 23 and spend money tearing up what we just put in, which makes utterly no sense to me whatsoever. But by the same token, I fully agree that there's a lot of businesses here that are going to be adversely affected and we need to look at a different plan. So I don't know what to do here. This is we need to get something going, but every time we turn around, we're saying that we have this artificial deadline. We can't do anything. So I'd love to know what, again, this is why I'm asking for can we postpone this for a month and have a special meeting and take a look at it and then get it on the agenda for city commission to still be able to get this done by within this fiscal year and this grant period, or is that completely ridiculous?
I don't want to say ridiculous, but I think it's probably not going to happen. and it's not because for lack of effort on staff's part. It's just a matter of timing with the CDBG program and the timing of the commission meetings. And also, like, yeah, our next meeting is in 2 months, but it takes a really long time to put together exhibits, especially if we're talking about options and pros and cons. That's going to be very difficult to achieve anyways for my staff. So I would rather spend a few months and do something more comprehensive, bring it to the commission and give them some options to select from, and then maybe go after CDBG next year. I hope Joseph's not mad at me for suggesting that, but that's based on what I'm hearing, that seems like the most reasonable course of action.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, in Mr. Karlowski's suggestion on that, Holly, would a vote of nay on your suggested motion kind of push in that direction? I mean, what I'm saying, and it goes along with Mr. Karlowski's confusion about what to do, is, if a no vote on that kind of signals the city commission to say this needs to be looked at over a longer time frame. to someone that might make that motion, that's, I think, the message that we want to send, and if that could be done clearly is what I'm trying to ask.
I think we could have a motion potentially that directs staff to prepare options, hold another traffic committee meeting with inviting the same businesses for a public comment. Gosh, I don't know.
I'm not sure that's going to be fruitful.
Yeah, I don't want to end up in the same boat again.
Yeah, I don't think, you know, we're not good with road designers, and even though I've gotten, you know, a number of notes here from the businesses that said this, we need our parking. I'm not sure another meeting is going to get us any clearer direction, is what I'm trying to say. But my feeling too is along the lines with Mr. Karlowski. I just a straight up yay vote on researching this is kind of saying, oh, traffic looked at this and think it's thumbs up. Let's go do it. And that's the reason I probably wouldn't vote in that direction should that go that way. Because the city commission can totally do a 180 on us and say, go do it, we want to spend it. But the message that I would prefer the consensus to say is, no, this isn't enough time to do it right. And to me, that's a suggestion of a nay vote on the suggested. And if this commission says, you know, let's do some sort of hybrid, you can do that administratively. You don't have to bring it back in front of us. You can, you know, business owners can reach out to you directly with a clear suggestion, and you can figure it out if it's good or not.
I would say I probably would bring it back to the committee because this is a really nice forum to invite the public and share their thoughts. It seems like the most appropriate way to do that. But I agree with you, just saying no in the motion now, and then we could kind of explain it at the commission table, why it was a no and what our thoughts were for the future. And hopefully that would give me enough direction to kind of plan for what happens next year.
Anybody else?
So to clarify, Holly, you could work with us as the committee voting down the recommendation based on all the comments you've heard today. Like you would take the no, we don't approve the staff recommendation as us, I guess, asking for engineering to look into this further, or do you need a more specific motion? I guess I'm struggling with what the motion is, just like everyone else is struggling with what the motion is. Maybe because it's almost 9:30. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, we could just reject it here. I could get the feedback from the commission table and I could bring it as basically a new item in 6 months or however long it takes, you know, to get some good exhibits and just bring it back to the table that way. Or we could have a motion that directs us to reevaluate and provide more options at a future date or something like that.
But a simple no vote will get us there. Does the no vote and the no vote with staff, you know, with us direction, do they all end up in the same? It's like two trains going to the same station. Because I'll move to deny the staff recommendation, but I like the idea of engineering looking into it and maybe coming back in 6 months or however many months, you know, with whatever information you've gathered and other options. And I don't want to foreclose that.
I personally think you could make a motion to deny staff recommendation with city staff engineering looking into further options. Just leave it kind of wide open for Holly and the commission to kind of sort it out, to say, yeah, let's fast track this, give us, alternatives, or, but the traffic committee listened to these people and didn't think it was a good idea. They voted no. So I don't think you have to be specific on a time frame. I would just do more of a general kind of reason for your no in the motion.
Is it on me? I'll do it. Well, I'll move to deny the staff recommendation with the further recommendation that engineering look into Delamere Boulevard and the redesign plan further.
Great, we have a motion. Is there support?
Mark, I'll support.
Go ahead.
Mark supported. Any more discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks for the lively discussion on that. I think we got some good points out, and we listened to business owners, and I'm sure Holly will communicate that when this does come in front of the city commission. When is the date for that, Holly? Do we know?
I'm planning on bringing it on February 8th.
Okay. All right. I think that brings us close to the end. Jennifer, is there anything left on?
Sorry about that. Nope, that was the last item on the agenda. So to any of the attendees of this meeting, our resolutions that we made today will go before the City Commission on February 8th. So if you do want to add comments, you would speak during the public comment portion of that meeting.
All right, thanks. I guess thanks everybody for their attendance and looking for a motion.
Well, can I just one other thing before we quit? I see that we have the shot clocks on the crosswalks at 11 Mile in Maine and a couple other spots, but the crosswalk signal at 11 in Maine and certainly at Troy Street appears to be has to be activated by a person. I was wondering, do we really can we redo that one at the 11 in Maine? Because I'm sure a lot of people don't realize that, and it could get, if we ever open up again, it could get rather interesting. People crossing or waiting for a signal, not realizing you have to hit the button, particularly at that particular intersection.
I can ask our traffic consultant who's running the signal project. We had the same issue at Campbell and 4th Street. That was the first time I had seen that. I didn't realize that was the new standard, that crosswalk lights are always the red hand, even if it is the green for you to go, unless you activate it and it will say walk. And part of the reason is that a lot of our signals are getting optimized now with timing, so that if somebody doesn't tell it, hey, a pedestrian is crossing right now, it might change the traffic cycle timing. So if somebody is crossing, it might add an extra 12 seconds or something to the green to allow pedestrians to get across the street. But I see your point, especially in the downtown. Like, are we allowed by traffic rules to go away from that? Because I do think it confuses a lot of people. So I'll ask him if there's a standard practice or if we're required to follow it a certain way.
Okay. And the other thing I noticed that these new speed limit signs are up on Main Street north of 12 Mile. And I have traversed that, and it's a lot easier to drive at the 30, I don't want to say, slightly around 30 miles an hour than the 25. Things flow a lot easier, and I don't think there's going to be a lot of speeding either, because it seems to be a normal flow speed from what I've experienced anyway.
Great, thanks for that. Any other comments for the benefit of the committee? Not hearing any. Look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Who's in a second?
I'll second.
And call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Good job, Jennifer, Holly, Joe. Anybody I missed?
Yeah, thanks, Holly and Jen.
A good night.
See you guys.